I won't take up too much time, so if the people setting up for the performance could let me know, we'll be guided by that. It's an impossible task, I have to say, from the Western Development Commission's point of view, because really so much has been there. I don't envy you participating in this as an audience, because I've heard so much today. I think to bring it all back, what we've seen from this morning and from this afternoon is some very good discussions that have gone deep into topics around product development, commercialization, startups, mentoring, education, and exports, all of which is great for the creative economy. It's also very hard for people in there, because I know you're very passionate about your segments within it, but we kind of in the Western Development Commission make no bones about it. We're in this for the money, which is good and bad. I guess it's bad if you haven't got it, but it's good if we can get it for you. One of the things I would say from this afternoon especially is some key topics that have just come to me that I think perhaps we can look at some sort of a discussion if we've got time. American for Arts, I think Susie talked about that, and I think that's a very interesting concept, not because it's new and shiny, but your point being about the advocacy.
It's 50 years old.
50 years old, exactly, but in terms of what we're doing. Because there was a question earlier regarding, from somewhere up in the back, excuse me if I can't see you with this light, regarding about the sort of capital thing and the global and the local communities. I'm paraphrasing greatly what you said. But my feeling about that was that I think what we're looking is to have local community production, but global selling. So I would agree very much with what you're saying, because you had two questions. One was that, and the other one was around the whole sort of... No problem. I've been kicked off stage already. That's a great start for anyone. James, I remember you talking about a comedy show. Obviously, we're not going to get another booking. Sorry about that. And I'm standing in the wrong place. Thank you. I really am going to get stage struck now. Sorry, but to come back to, I think about the national policy, and I know we were talking about it later on in the day. I'm trying to, again, find the people that were speaking to that, Aisling. And I think what's really important, and what you've seen today, is a subnational approach, okay? And I think that's really important, because there are cultural differences in Sweden, Finland, Northern Ireland, and Ireland. And one of the things that we've noticed is perhaps we need to give an alternative to grants, an alternative to perhaps looking for the help from Dublin. And I mean a meaningful alternative, not just, oh, we can't do that. And I think one of the things I had written down in my notes is the result of what we've done as a partnership with NUIG, the WDC, and our international partners. I mean, there are loans now available for working capital. You hear that spoke of this morning. Pauline touched upon that. There are also talent vouchers, very, very small pilot schemes. You hear the people from Leitrim and Roscommon talk about how we're working together on ways to get people networked. I think all of these things have to be considered by this group and others to see, are they valid forms for you to do business? I mean, for those who heard Paul when he talked about the creative hubs, I mean, that's not, we all know about places needing to be reinvigorated and stuff, but Paul gave a very, very good evocation of how they are perhaps becoming valid models for both production of creative goods and services, and perhaps, hopefully, for more commercial engagement with global markets. Also, I heard somebody talking about Menlo Park and about how culture was an engagement there, or a bridge towards engagement. Well, what I would say is that's fantastic. But let's also look at what we've learned from best practice from game dev. Because you know what? We have an FDI approach to gaming in this country, and it needs to be augmented by the independent gaming sector, which is indigenous, which can grow, and which will beautifully complement the big EAs and everyone coming in. And I'd love to get us clued in at a regional and local level to that. And I think the WDC and NUIG, especially locally, will help on that in the Irish context. But you know what? Talking about creative steps, which, with all the greatest respect, brilliant presentation, but what knocked my socks off was the products that came out of that transnational thing in ITRA. Because when I seen them, I just went, that's fantastic. Storybooks, illustrations, all of this. That's a valid way to actually use people's creativity from peripheral regions. And I can only say that all we've got to do is connect that with markets. And we're really going to start having some real meaningful jobs in our local communities. My final point about that, I guess, is to say that I think that somebody made a point earlier in the afternoon about the money that's in this for people as a career. And I've always tried to be very respectful about that, because I think people choose this as a vocation as much as something just to get money. One of the things we have noticed in working with NUIG, they did a little survey for us in 2011. We said, okay, look, if we go to all of this bother about trying to export creative goods and services, working with our great international partners, so what? And they talked to, I think it was 99 firms in the end you got out of a sample study of perhaps a couple hundred. And they said, we can give you 17,000 more jobs. And we said, you got to be joking. And they went back and talked to them again. And they said, yes. But one of the things about those huge numbers is the value of it. The GVA is not huge, okay? It comes down to the low 20,000s, which means the jobs will tend to be seasonal, part-time, maybe summer or winter. So we have to be realistic about the sector. There are people who will make a lot of money doing brilliant things, but there are many people who will be very happy to make a little money living in their communities. And that's the sort of thing about peripherality when we talk about whether it's in Vasterbotten, whether it's in Kemitornio, or whether it's, you know, in Galway or Ballina or wherever we're talking about it. So I think to answer one of the questions from somebody at the back there as well, there is a point where, yes, the fact that they are 4 times more likely to be entrepreneurs, which is a great thing to hear, they also perhaps are coming into a sector where they're understanding, well, I'm not maybe going to make $1 million, but I will make a good living. And that's no bad thing either. And it is part of what we have to get out there as well. It's to make it attractive but realistic. I've just tried to draw some of the points together with that. I'm sure I've missed many because there's been quite a lot today. I'm furiously looking around for Patrick because I'm not sure if he wishes to say a thing or two. Because at this point, James, what I was going to do was ask, were there any comments from the floor, if that's appropriate? So could I leave it with that now that I can actually see you? If anyone has any comments or questions, perhaps either I can field them or somebody else. Yep.
Yeah, my name is Janine McGinn. I think I can shout. I'm a lecturer, so I'm well used to shouting. Yeah, and I'm from the MIT Mayo campus. And I'm coming in, I suppose I'm one of those tie-wearing types. I have an MBA, you know, and I'm a business graduate. But I'm coming in from the outside, looking in at all of you creatives, even though I was an entrepreneur, so I think I'm a bit creative myself. And in the business literature, they're looking for creatives now. And I'm finding, and my big problem, and what I'm researching at the moment is how we've sort of trained our business graduates so much that they are not creative anymore. So we're trying to kind of create an environment where people can be creative in business. And so we're really looking for these creative people. And what I see here is suddenly, you know, coming into this environment here, I see that you have the same problems as we have. You have the same issues as we have. But you're coming at them from a different perspective. And the key success factors that I've seen in most of these presentations were things like multidisciplinarity, transnationalism, well, innovativeness, obviously, but like, I mean, all of these issues, all of these things that are creating success in your projects also create success from our perspective. So I think, you know, we're going to benefit hugely from working together and from having programs of education that are transdisciplinary, you know, so that's
I think that's a very valid comment. I'm going to walk all the way up to the back if someone's holding their hands. Just as I'm doing that, if I could say, absolutely, in terms of the creativity. One of the reasons why I know the Whitaker Institute and ourselves are looking at this is the west of Ireland is a great region, but we don't have a lot of innovation. We do have creativity, and we are seeing that link, not just semantics, between creativity and innovation, and hopefully part of what we're hoping to do is evolve that over time. Absolutely. Sorry.
Hello. I just wanted to mention on the community education side of things, my name's Jen Hessman, and I'm an arts facilitator. I studied community arts in Glasgow, BA Honours, and I've been full-time employed since my return to Galway. I'm from Galway originally, in the community education sector. I'm currently teaching an entrepreneurship program for young people, for teenagers. So just like on all of these kind of mentions of education in third level, I just wanted to comment on, I really believe that it is worth investing in secondary schools and elementary schools, and I know that it was mentioned there in terms of like film education. I think it was Simon who mentioned it, that they do workshops. Since my return, we've set up the Galway Community Arts Network, which really focuses on, in this local area, people who are interested in the arts or in creative industries coming together. And with that, we've also teamed up with, sorry, I'm really nervous with microphones, the NUIG, the CKI, and the Galway Galway City Community Forum to form creative communities. So on the 13th of December, we're doing a arts facilitation introductory course. And because I really feel like in terms of if we are wanting people to become entrepreneurs and creative entrepreneurs, we really need to be starting at from the get-go to encourage that to happen.
Okay, and I think that's a very well made point, and something in terms of next steps we need to consider, because just as I look around, just to say that one of the things we are doing in next steps is a lot of this partnership is working to grow the learning from this and get more funding, quite honestly, so we can scale what we're doing properly, so we can really start creating big differences to enterprise and jobs, which is fantastic. Now, we've some ideas about that, and some of the feedback I'd like to say of people who perhaps have some ideas after this is to get back to us and let us know what you think, either about the programs you've seen or about ideas you have. I've heard education mentioned a lot there, perhaps due to the last two speakers, but you know, any ideas at all are very good. Any more questions?
About not relying on government grants, but the problems are structural as well. To do an MA in Galway, you can't do an MA in fine art in Galway. You have to travel to Limerick, and they talk about the Galway art market becoming stale, and it so says after doing an honest degree that you have to leave Galway, and it's ridiculous. And I think the authorities have to take some responsibility for grants and for further education.
Yep. I think that's a fair point. I mean, to qualify what I said, I said it. I guess we shouldn't eliminate that type of thing, and I agree there are absolute instances where you do need to do that. And I don't know if anyone wants to make a comment on that particular point, but I appreciate that need is out there and needs to be looked at. I think on the policy side, just so people are clear in the Irish perspective, because we had a good overview there of the international comparison from Aisling. We are working with central government. Everybody knows that this falls between arts, enterprise, local government, so there is this usual, well, that's not fully our responsibility. We are definitely joining the dots at a regional level, partly because we're doing the programs and showing them the way, and I have to say the local authorities are working very much with us on that. I know some are ahead of others, but there is a good push there, and it's something we will continue. But again, as I said earlier, I think we have to look at self-reliance a little bit in there on a regional perspective. I think the national picture will take a while to sort of firm up. And don't forget Europe. I think Europe is ahead on this one in that it is clearly saying through DG Education and Culture, you need to work for this. And we're seeing a lot of the industry and enterprise type DGs coming on board saying we want programs for the next 7 years that are focused around the creative and cultural sector. So that's something that I think will drive government behaviour as well. So it's not all lost on that side. It's just we're taking a little bit of a pragmatic view. Any final questions there, please?
It's just a major point, I think Susie, when she was in our house, touched on, which is the one thing that we haven't talked about as much, which is the customers in the market themselves. As some people know, we certainly have 250 of the main retailers in this country and some abroad, and I think one of the biggest inspirations I got was when the American Retail Association came to see us in our venue. They invited us and anybody else in the cultural business to do a full tour of all those places in the States, which they would pay for. They wanted to see the musicians, the artisans, they wanted to see them from north and south, and they're willing to fund it. And I think it's very important to not forget that they are the people at the end of the day, whether it's online or offline, that actually give us our living. And I think we need to focus more on that in a very simple way rather than looking for money all the time. So I would certainly invite a conference where we could actually invite the retailers. I have an invitation at the moment from half of the great houses of Ireland who want to open their doors for exhibitions from the creative edge. So if we were to put a very simple exhibition travelling together whether it goes international or abroad, I'll certainly sponsor it anyway.
One of the things that came out of this program, of course, is exactly what you say. We're using jargon, B2B selling. What we actually have is we put in several thousand into the International Trade Fair Fund from the Craft Council, so that Western businesses, and I think some people here were involved in that, but they may have left, are actually in those international fairs for a period of 2 to 3 years, because that's how long it takes to establish relationships. Exactly what you're saying, though, to get the retailers, and it's more of that we need. Sorry.
Hi, I think I just have a comment based on the kind of the discussion that's been about how to attract people to, to live and work in these regions. I guess maybe it's a comment on the fact that we're looking at like areas of South Connemara as kind of creative clusters, yet when you go another 5 minutes down the road, you're in an unemployment black spot, especially with youth unemployment. And so it's about like we're attracting people to live in these areas, yet there's a disparity between the actual skills of the people living in these regions and how do you bridge that gap? And that kind of links up again. If you're in Galway and you want to stay in Galway and you want to become, let's say, a sonographer like an animation company, or you want to become a coder, or you want to become a graphic designer, you have to leave. Like, you don't have a graphic design course in the art college. If you're interested in art, you end up studying fine art. So there is kind of a gap in the whole design training as well. And again, I work with artists. I commission art with the local authorities. And I've got artists coming to me at the moment saying, I'm getting lots of work from you. I'm getting lots of work internationally. I'm representing Ireland in biennales, but I can't pay the bills because the availability of regular, dependable income that pays the bills while they're waiting for their commission money to come in, or they're waiting for their fee from their big biennale. Those irregular incomes, there's no actual dependable regular income because all of the lecturing work has been drying up. So, I mean, there's those kind of, I know that you're talking about the small jobs to help you live in your community and the gaps in between them. It's kind of a bit worrying. I'm still trying to work out what to do myself, but we'll come up with something.
Yeah, just to say, I completely agree with that point. I suppose what it is and what we've attempted to do is look at a regional level, because when you focus down in terms of scale, you are going to get these disparities in place. And I think, not least, I suppose, through the work of the WDC, has been trying to define it as a regional package, a regional brand. So that's in relation to your first point.
It's just difficult because that particular area becomes a black spot. We highlighted their cultural importance to do it. Irish language, storytelling, Irish dance, there's no easy way of commodifying that as a tourism product. So it's these kind of little gaps that are kind of worrying, that we focus so much on the immediate network, the kind of whitewashing the reason why people might want to live in Galway.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I understand your point, and we can't be a panacea for everything. That's true. So, take that with a pinch of salt, or pick what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. But I think we do believe that place is a very, very important thing of what defines rural creativity. We've been talking about that a lot. We perhaps didn't focus on it to the end today, but between urban and rural, there's definitely a difference. For example, artisanal goods here, which are reflective of the land and the landscape and the people, are very much more prevalent. And I think in the handout you gave, you'll see that in terms of classification. So, coming up with a brand, we haven't gone there. My creative edge seems to, as Pauline said, with 28,000 visits in like 2.5 months or 3 months, it's starting to get worryingly big. So, is that going to be a brand? I have no idea, and that's part of the reason why we'd like to talk to people to see, what fits. But if you look at Finland and something, they have Taito, which has been around since 1907. This is the cultural online shop and organisation in Finland. I'm probably mispronouncing it, that's why you don't recognise it. So there are benchmark examples of where they've kind of done that thing and helped them without having to brand them. And also the difference between tourism, cultural tourism, and creativity design is a very complex thing in terms of branding. You can't really do both, I wouldn't say, but something we'd have to look at.
Go to international trade shows to promote Irish music, but I think what you're saying about bringing all the creators from our region together to showcase internationally would be an absolutely fantastic thing to do.
You would achieve huge amounts in a short space of time.
Really, really.
We've learned that from Sweden, actually. They do a lot of events, Creative Summit,
film ones, and there's a wow thing I didn't really fully appreciate till I seen what was happening.
I also think we have a lot of artists coming to us and volunteer running goals in Youth Cafe. If artists were to consider upskilling themselves in terms of facilitation, that there are opportunities for what this lady down here mentioned, your bread and butter employment, to upskill and to be able, as a musician, to do community education projects in the local area, which helps for artists and for employment.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that then? Because I think we've had a full and fruitful discussion. Okay. If that's it, because I know you all want to go on and we want to see what's behind the curtain, I'll just hand over to Patrick in a moment. I'd just like to say, finally, on behalf of the Western Development Commission, thank you very much to the Whitaker Institute. It's been a superb day. And without wishing to steal your thunder, I just have to say, on behalf of the presenters, all of them were fantastic, and especially the ones to whom I know English is not your first language. Believe me, this is the irony of ironies with the theatre you're in, but could I just ask for a round of applause?